If you ask me what was one of my most exciting aviation trips, I would tell you it was a trip to Pakistan in 2012. In 3 days, I've flown 8 times behind the cockpits, exploring the whole country. My Pakistan trip started from Dubai. It was organized by my good friend Arush. He was a PIA pilot at that time. It wasn't easy to go to Pakistan, so security was a big concern for me.
We arranged a tour of the country together where I picked him up from Dubai and flew him into Karachi. And then over just a weekend, over 2 days, we did 8 flights across the country, going up to Islamabad, Lahore, Gilgit, and then back to Karachi. All of that just over the weekend, whirlwind tour where we did some great spotting across the country and had a good time, ate some great food as well, and gave Sam a brief tour of what the country was like and hope he can come back soon.
Having Arush actually as the first officer on that flight really calms my nerve, and I start to feel very comfortable.
Sam and I were lucky to fly the 310 together, and the 310, if you remember, was a hybrid in-between sort of aircraft from the A300. They shortened it and put bigger engines on it, so it became an overpowered aircraft, which was sort of a mix of the analog and the digital.
On our flight, we actually had lots of labor. They were checking in lots of baggage and some even checking a bottle of holy water. We had about an hour delay out of Dubai. We departed among a lot of A380 and 777 out of Dubai around 3:50 in the morning. So after takeoff, we were served a late dinner. I was quite surprised there was no one in business class. The only other passengers were actually PIA pilots that heading back to Pakistan. The dinner was extremely tasty, actually beyond my expectation. And then to wash it all down, we have a dessert called Bafi, and the flight attendant were also extremely friendly. And I was taken by surprise. Honestly, I was going to a country very little known, and there were lots of negative in the press about Pakistan. But then, during the flight, I started warming up and I started feeling good about going to Pakistan. And towards the end of the flight, we started to see the sunrise over the horizon as we're flying eastbound. And we had very foggy weather in Karachi just before we land, but it was a good landing. And I was really glad that I flown on the A310 again.
60, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Karachi airport was very typical, a very crowded airport, lots of people at arrivals picking up relatives. I had a couple hour rest in Karachi before in the afternoon getting on my second flight, which was a 777-200 ER from Karachi to Islamabad. It was great at that time. In Pakistan, you can still fly a lot of wide-body airplane across domestic flights, and we took off around 4 p.m. and landed just after dark. We can see the whole Islamabad skyline under clear weather, and it was the old Islamabad airport, which is extremely small and very much looked like a bus station, actually. Then I overnighted at Islamabad Marriott Hotel, which was actually famous to being bombed a while back. So it was heavily fortified in the entrance to go in, and had a really great tasty Pakistani food. There are many advantages using a VPN that you don't want to miss out. Personally, I use Surfshark VPN to bypass internet censorship, to find cheaper travel, and to secure my data. Internet censorship is a growing pain in many countries I travel to. Google, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram is blocked, and I couldn't connect with my friends, family, and followers. So I simply use Surfshark VPN to connect to another country to access all the content I want. Moreover, I can access to most Netflix library with just one simple subscription of Surfshark. With the help of Surfshark VPN, there are good possibility to finding cheaper travel, cheaper air tickets, cheaper rental car, and cheaper hotel when connecting the VPN to another country. For frequent flyers like myself, I often use public Wi-Fi at the airport or in the hotel. To send sensitive information like banking credentials, I use Surfshark VPN to encrypt and secure my data. Here's the best deal for our viewers today. Get Surfshark VPN at surfshark.com/Sam. Enter promo code SAM. You will get 83% off and 3 additional months for free. This video is sponsored by Surfshark. So the next morning, it was the most exciting part of my trip in Pakistan, flying into the northern area of Gilgit. I have no idea how much of a thrill was on that flight.
So one of the flights we did with Sam was from Islamabad up into the mountains in Gilgit, which is a very unique kind of flight because it's all visual rules flight, which operates every morning. You never know if it's going to go, basically, because it depends so much on the weather at the destination, which is Gilgit. So literally you rock up to the airport and there's a guy in the hills above Gilgit who checks the weather every morning and calls the airport and says, yes, the valley is clear, I can see in, the airplane can come in today.
Fortunately, the flight eventually ran and we got on the flight. It was an ATR 42. It actually has a premium economy section in the front with one row reverse facing the other and then economy in the back. We took off in the early morning. Within 15 minutes of departure, we start seeing snow-capped mountain, and we were flying really, really close to these mountains. I remember in the cockpit, the warning from the GPWS, the ground proximity warning system, was coming non-stop. So the pilots actually have to turn off the GPWS because it was terrain all over the place. It was an incredible clear day of flying. Lots of mountains, including the peak of Nanga Parbat, which was the 9th highest mountain in the world. It was beautiful to see the top, the snow blowing at the top. And then suddenly, the weather changed and became deteriorated. The sun gave in back to the cloud. The captain at that point has to make a decision whether continuing into Gilgit or abort the trip and return to Islamabad because there were no instrumental aid and landing in Gilgit.
You may know that we've lost a number of aeroplanes in that area due to the high terrain. The flight itself starts with only the departure station weather and the destination weather. In between the high mountains, and there is no meteorological reporting there. So the airplane took off. If the weather en route was bad, it would come back.
So fortunately, the visibility was still good to allow us to make all the way into Gilgit. So we continued the flights. And that was really an exciting flight because it was flying so close to all the mountains. I remember coming into Gilgit, we made a huge left turn to avoid the mountaintop in front. And then we started to do a steep descent into the airport. And talk about the airport, I didn't see it. When we were on final approach, I still didn't see the airport. It was actually hidden in the fog with a mountain line of trees. Only about 3 or 4 seconds before the touchdown, we finally saw the airport runway. It was that close and that tricky. And then we have to quickly land and reverse because it was short runway. It was a thrill. Let me tell you this. It was like nothing I've experienced. I remember after we landed, we were actually given a tour to the ATC tower with the tower guys with very simple equipment. We had tea and biscuit with them and talk about aviation in general. Later of the day, the PIA local station chief were actually giving us a tour around Gilgit. He took us to Serena Gilgit Hotel to have breakfast and to look around the Rift Valley with lots of suspension bridges.
The surprising part to most foreigners about Pakistan is the northern area. There is tremendous potential there. It's beautiful and it's untouched. It's virgin area.
Beautiful area, just like Switzerland. I can't believe it. And it's time to leave Gilgit. Our return flight has landed, and then we got on board, and the weather was all clear on this time of the day, and then we see all the beautiful, spectacular snowy mountain on our way back to Islamabad.
Islamabad is a beautiful green city at the foothills of the Margalas, which is a modern city, very well laid out, sparsely populated compared to the other cities, and really worth a visit to, as Sam saw. Within an hour you can be up in the mountains, about 6,000 feet altitude. In the winter it's snowy there, there's some snow and some lovely resorts there as well.
I have to admit, I really like the food in Pakistan. I love the grills, all the meats. And also they have a special version of Chinese Pakistani food, which is very close to Chinese food. So I love the hospitality of the people in Pakistan. They treat you like royalty. There were very, very few countries that people were so interested in you. And any foreign tourists, any Western foreign tourists going to Pakistan will instantly get treated like celebrities. They were just so warm-hearted. People invite you to go to their house, and they love having a good time with you.
For his flight back from Islamabad to Karachi, he got a little delayed enjoying the food up in the hills. And he got to the airport 10 minutes before departure time of the flight. And the captain was waiting outside the airport at curbside to pick Sam up, and grabbed his bags for him, rushed him through security and took him straight onto the airplane. And the flight departed ahead of time, despite all that. So that's how well people get treated over there.
50, 20, 30, 20, 10.
So the next day, another exciting trip ahead. It was flying the 747-300. At that time, PIA 747 were mainly doing Saudi Arabia, Hajj, Umrah charters, and also they were doing ad hoc domestic runs between Karachi and Lahore. I was expecting probably a quiet flight, 100 passenger, and I was wrong. Almost 500 passengers rocked up to the flight, and then the entire boarding process took about an hour, about half of the length of the flight itself. In fact, the entire jumbo was economy class. The upper deck has better legroom. They had the economy plus section on it, and the entire lower deck was mounted with very large overhead bins because of lots of luggages. I was sitting behind Captain Safar on the 747 and watching him training other junior pilots on the right-hand seat. I had a quick turnaround at Lahore at Allama Iqbal Airport. I really like the architecture of the airport, the red colored building at the airport. One thing on PIA I realized, they pay a lot of respect to the flight crew, the captains. They were actually giving better food to the captains and the flight deck crew than to the passengers. You can see the amount of food was insane. When I landed back at Karachi, and I was then given a tour at the PIA maintenance site, and then there were lots and lots of old airplanes parked up, and then lots of 747 at that time was dismantled. It was really sad to see the states. Lots of A310s, Tupolev 154, Bak 111, Shaheen 737-200 were all there. And then to end the day, we went to a young engineer's house. His name was Zain, and then we had a good time spotting at his rooftop. Well, that was my trip 8 years ago to Pakistan. I love everything on that trip, the people, the food, the hospitality, and of course aviation. And I only know one thing, I will be back.